What's up, guys? I am back finally, and I'm making sourdough bread today. So I'm gonna walk you through the process with several different steps. But when you make sourdough bread, you wanna take about 10 hours out of your day to be close to home to do all these different steps. So step one is making what is called the leaven. So what I have here is 50 grams of starter measured, and now I'm gonna add in 2 types of flour and 100 grams of water. You have to have a kitchen scale because that is going to be what is going to measure everything and do it very accurately. So here we go. So I'm going to put 50 grams. This is bread flour. You want to do all of your, I've found, when you're making bread and you're measuring out the flour, you're gonna wanna do all of your solids first. And that's because when you're pouring in the flour, if you pour over 50 grams and you have to take some out, which I generally do, then you've gotta make sure that you're putting in what you need. When you make leaven or starter, we'll do another video on starter later for bread, you need to have a clear glass like this. This happened to be in the Airbnb that we're staying in, so it works. All right, so there's bread flour. You can use any brand, honestly, it doesn't matter. It's your preference, and honestly, what is at the grocery store right now. So now I'm gonna do the same amount. I'm gonna do 50 grams of whole grain or whole wheat flour. It really does not matter. It is your preference. So I'm gonna add that. Almost there. Definitely wanna upgrade to a nicer kitchen scale, but if you just have a normal kitchen scale, it will work. Okay, almost there. I started making bread during quarantine because I was honestly getting bored at home. And I thought, well, if I'm gonna pick up a hobby, it might as well be something that I like. And it's actually very therapeutic for me to bake bread. So I enjoy it. Okay, so now I'm gonna pour the 100 grams of water, and I'm going to just mix and combine everything. I might not talk a ton during this part because I am accident prone, but there's a lot of flour and starter. Okay, so what I'm gonna do once I'm done mixing it all together is the leaven you want to rise. And what you want it to do is at least double itself in size. And once this is incorporated, it shouldn't be super high on the glass, and if it is, then I'll just make the transfer to something else later. Your leaven is what you're gonna combine with something called your autolyse. So in a little bit, I'm gonna make an autolyse and show you how to do that. One thing that I really like about making sourdough bread is that it smells really good. So when you're making it throughout the day, the leaven with the starter, and it's gonna be very thick and very sticky. If you get some on your hands, it's really not a big deal. And I've honestly found too, not that I have done it right now, but that wetting my hands or even putting a little bit of flour will help. One step that we did not film is the night before with the starter. So when I make a video about the starter, I will show you guys all of that. So technically you need 10 hours and then one night before, but the night before literally takes 5 minutes to do. So, got it pretty much almost incorporated. So, while I'm finishing this, what I'm gonna do is, again, I wanna see it at least double in size. So I'm gonna put it in a warm place. The blog recipe that I follow, I will put below in the description of the video, but what she does is she puts the leaven in a 78-degree climate. Now, obviously, I don't know what is 78 degrees. So you can even stick your leaven in your oven. Oven's a pretty warm spot in the kitchen. I've done the microwave. you can be creative with it. And if you have a kitchen thermometer, you can measure it out. Okay, so there's probably a couple spots, but this is my leaven, and I'm going to stick it in a relatively warm place and let it grow for 5 hours. You might need more, you're not gonna need less. And honestly, what I've learned too is you don't see the leaven grow until the last 2 hours. It generally stays about the same, and then it starts to peak and rise and grow to be able to use for baking bread. So this is step 1 of baking bread. Okay guys, so the leaven is still rising. What I'm gonna do is make what's called the autolyse. I did not know what this was, but basically it's a mixture of flour and water combined, and all I'm really gonna do is make sure they're incorporated. Then I'm gonna cover it, probably stick it in the oven somewhere where it's warm, and just let it sit along with the leaven during the 5 hours. You can really make this anytime in the process. I would say within an hour or two after making your leaven, then make the autolyse. So what this is it's a mixture of 400 grams of bread flour, 125 of wheat, I'll post it below if I mess this up, and then 275 of all-purpose. So you've mixed all that up, I weighed it with my kitchen scale, and then this is 570 grams of water. Now, ideally, you want it to be fairly warm. So I'm gonna you want it to be warm-ish to be able to easily incorporate with the flour. So now what I'm gonna do is pour it over top, and then I'm going to really just get it to where the water and the flour are incorporating. You can use any kind of spoon with this. I have not really used a wooden spoon yet, so I'm curious to see how well this is gonna do. But you should start to see as I'm mixing, and I'm being really careful not to make a mess because I am known to make a mess with this. And it is flour, so you don't want to get it all over the place. But anyways, just kind of letting the liquid sit in with. There might be a couple times where I'm gonna have to use my fingers to scoop off of it. But as you can see, it's starting to make a dough. One thing that I love about making sourdough bread is you don't need a lot of ingredients. You need 3 types of flour. We're gonna incorporate salt into our dough, and then you need a sourdough starter, but that really is just a mixture of flour and water, honestly. So you can see it starting to toughen up. The flour, I have noticed, really likes to sit at the bottom of the bowl. Also, you really don't have to be fancy when you're making sourdough bread. So you don't have to have all of these crazy tools. You need a bowl, and that's about it, and some mason jars. You will need bread pans, but we'll get into that. So yeah, as you can see, there's still flour sitting at the bottom. And this does take some of your hands too, as well. You are gonna get sticky with this, so just be mindful of that. But it's called my autolyse. So it's pretty much almost incorporated. I just gotta make sure all the flour at the bottom. I found that mixing it and then using my hands and a spoon works the best. But again, there's different ways to do it. I'm not an expert. This is my 3rd or 4th time, so I'm still learning. But I think what's fun about it is a process. So again, your hands are gonna get sticky, but it's actually almost done. Just wanna make sure it's a little bit at the bottom. I could also scoop it, which I might do, put it on top. But as you can see, this is your autolyse. It's pretty much incorporated for the most part. I would say this is the only step for me where I get, like my hand gets really sticky. But other than that, again, you just want to mix it till it's incorporated. There is a little bit of flour around, but that's fine. So yeah, there's the autolyse. So what I'm going to do is cover it. And again, you want to put it somewhere warm. It shouldn't really grow a lot just because it's flour and water. When we mix the leaven and incorporate it with the autolyse, that's when you're going to start to see a dough form. So there you go. So the next step will be in about 4 hours when we combine the two together. Okay guys, I am back with, I believe we're on step 3, and what I'm going to do is incorporate the leaven with the autolyse. Now, you're going to definitely wash your hands as you're making bread anyways, but this step and on, you're going to want to make sure you have clean hands. I also have a bowl of water with me because wet hands make it way easier to work with the dough and be able to mix it well. So what I'm going to do is spoon out all of the leaven. Now, as you can see, one thing with this measuring cup is it gets wider as the cup gets taller, so the volume is a little bit different. So I didn't quite eyeball it as double, but that's obviously because of how the cup is. Okay, so I'm making sure I get all the leaven. This is what is going to make your dough, I don't want to say come alive, but that's the best way I can think about it. Again, you're gonna really want, and I should have done this before the video, but I am gonna take off my rings because this is when your hands get nice and clumpy. And you can definitely, you'll see me do this, as I incorporate it together, you can keep making your hands wet again. So all I'm gonna do is literally fold it in. If you put your hands straight in the leaven, it's obviously gonna make it really sticky. So you don't wanna go that route. And I will be honest, this is not me. Who I post below the recipe, the blogger that I follow, she has full videos showing you each step like I'm showing you. But I'm just talking you through it. So you want it, and see, that leaven's really sticky. You really want to get it nice and incorporated, so do not be afraid to get your hands nice and sticky. Also, I have to say, I have not used a glass bowl, but I really like it in terms of the dough. It's not sticking as much to the bowl, which is nice because what I normally use sticks. So, again, you can put more water on your hands just so that way. But yeah, you're just gonna keep doing this. It's just a matter of mixing it, and you'll start to tell that the leaven and the autolyse are gonna get incorporated to make your dough. And also, if you notice, I'm kind of pulling and stretching it a little bit. I am by no means a dough or bread expert. That just helps me see if it's really getting incorporated. Okay, so it is pretty much mixed in, but again, I'm just going back through. I like to be very efficient, but also make sure that my dough looks real good. And again, sticky hands. This is probably, honestly, the messiest part to me of the whole process. Everything else, it gets way better as you go. And especially as your autolyse and leaven make a sourdough. So that is pretty much as incorporated as it is going to get. I'm just gonna keep mixing it just a little bit more. It smells really, really good. I'm making a sourdough, so when it has that nice, I'm not talking like gross sour smell, but like a really good sourdough smell, you know you're doing something right. Okay, so again, not perfect, but now what I'm gonna do is cover, and you wanna let the dough rest anytime that you're doing things to it typically. That's what a lot of bread experts say. So I'm gonna let this rest for 20 minutes, and then do something that I cannot pronounce, but I'm gonna try it. It's called the rhubarb mixing, so I'll show you all that next. I'm gonna wash my hands.